And I feel like that like comes full circle on this whole conversation between masculine and feminine, because Mercury is a very masculine planet. And that's like thinking and logic and perception, and like it's not emotional. It's in the head, it's not in the body, not in the heart. And to your point, like there's room for both. There's room for all of it. There's high expressions of all of it, right? Like there's times when our quick thinking keeps us alive. So by all means, like learn how to trust your quick thinking. And that's why our thinking is so fast, because it's like it's been honed over time. The fastest thinkers, they came up with solutions to problems and they survived. Mm-hmm. So, there's a reason that our brains work the way they do, because we are the survivors of all the other ones who came before. So, but, like there is so much more to this world than what we can logic our way through. And that's where masculine all by itself will be incomplete. Feminine all by itself will be incomplete. Like I was thinking about that, like how is masculine incomplete without the feminine? How is feminine incomplete without the masculine? And the feminine side was really interesting. Like, the feminine energy is that like depth and like psychic ability to know things that we have no earthly right to know. And like there's such power inside of feminine energy. It's like overwhelming that like that is really where the power is. And masculine energy is confidence. Yeah. It's like a willingness to take a step forward and say, I have something to say. Yeah. That's masculine energy. What comes out of your mouth could be feminine energy, depends on who you are. Mm-hmm. But like feminine energy doesn't step forward. Feminine energy doesn't raise their hand. Feminine energy doesn't take up people's time for no good reason. They're taking care of everyone, not asserting themselves. That self-assertion piece, that's the masculine. So it's like for feminine to be as effective as it can possibly be, you need healthy masculine energy, because it pushes that feminine energy forward out into the world where other people get to experience it also.
Yeah. So true. And I mean, if we're going to use like in my analogy, using Mercury, then on the other side, like the moon moves quickly too, but the moon, we can only ever see one side of it. There's always half the moon that's completely dark that we cannot see. And like, I think that's a good reference for, or a good analogy to use for the feminine, divine feminine, because there's always, it's like that realm of the unseen that there's always a little left to the imagination, and a little bit like there's never that clear, fully illuminated answer. And that's part of it. Like the mystery is part of it. And the like reaching for something in the dark that you can't see, that you can only feel. That's feminine energy.
Yeah.
But I mean, then again, the moon is always half illuminated. There's half light. Like I think that as much as the moon embodies feminine energy, I think it embodies a balance of the two also. It shows us how that can look.
Yeah.
Because I mean, where does the light come from? Of course, it comes from the sun, and that's like the ultimate masculine source. And that's
they need each other. That's the point.
They do.
Like there's a lot out there focusing on lifting up one or the other. And this goes back to, we came here for the contrast. We came here to see what we don't want, so we know what we do want. Not that I don't want you to lift up one or the other, but it really has shown me that like, no, it's both of them. Like we have to heal our masculine to let our feminine come through. We have to like heal our feminine to let there be room for the masculine. Like there has to be a mixture of both of them and a healing of all of it inside of each of us individually, I feel like.
Yeah.
That's what I'm reaching for.
I agree. And that was definitely out of the overall experience of doing QHHT, and especially that past life regression piece. Like that was a huge message I got from that. After those sessions, I would get these kind of like little hints dropped beforehand of little synchronicities. And then afterwards, I would always experience some sort of affirming message out in the world. And after that, the second session, the past life regression, was I saw my partner and I went down to a river to go like look for rocks, which is something we like to do. But there were slugs everywhere, and I don't see slugs very often, but there were slugs all over the place, and they just seemed like they were wiggling their little antennas at me, like saying hello. And I know about slugs that they're like both genders. They are both male and female wrapped up in one. Yeah, they have like both sets of genitals, I guess, and they like don't need.
They impregnate themselves?
I guess so. Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. So they're both basically, but it was like this symbol from the animal world, which is where I get a lot of my like synchronicities is with animals. There was this symbol of like being a balance of both masculine and feminine energy. And like I have been warned against looking up like spiritual meanings for different animals and stuff, because like let's say you saw a snake, and like the cultural interpretation for the most part of like the symbolic spiritual meaning of snakes is like danger and fear and things like that. But what if you like had a childhood pet snake that you absolutely loved and adored or something? Like the meaning's going to be different for you potentially because your personal association is different with snakes. But I do think it's like a good place to start, especially if you've been noticing something a lot and it like, you know, you're like, okay, I think this means something. I think there's a message for me here. Then I think like a Google search of spiritual meaning of slugs, for example, good place to start, you know, like even learning about the physical, like the biological makeup of that animal that you saw can help you put together the pieces of like, what meaning does this have for me? And so seeing slugs was like, I looked that up, and that's like one of the main identifiers, like one of the main really interesting things about slugs is that they are both sexes in one. And just like having gotten that message about like the balancing of the masculine and feminine was like seeing them all over the place that next day was a really nice, like affirming feeling of like, yeah, that was definitely one of the messages I was meant to take away.
Yeah.
That session.
Which is just crazy because like we both have like not a ton of like past life experiences or whatever, but like some, and that we both had like powerful revelations around masculine and feminine energy.
Yeah.
Like that just, you know, not a coincidence.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
No. And I think that a lot of times in life, we're definitely drawn to people who are experiencing some of this like similar
That's true.
or same lessons in life. And especially, you know, like, I don't know, we have, I think it's a lesson that a lot of us are learning, probably the majority of us in one way or another.
For sure, anybody listening to this conversation.
For sure. Like if you
you know, if you're hanging with us.
Yeah, there's probably something in it for you. And I think that all of us here on this planet are learning about polarity and light and dark and living with both and all of that. And like you said, like the North and South Pole, I mean, like masculine and feminine are manifestations of like that light and dark energy. Mm-hmm. The like sun and moon, it's all intertwined with these things. Yeah. And we all contain both energies, like a unique mixture. There's no one who doesn't have one or the other or neither or whatever. Like we all are a mixture of it. And so I think really, in a sense, we're all experiencing that lesson of balancing the two. Mm-hmm. Wherever you're at on that journey, like back as in my farmer life, like that was a different manifestation of masculine energy. I was definitely living more in a masculine space, but I also had these feelings of being really connected with my family, being really engaged with my kids. I had like, I could see that I had 2 sons and a daughter, which is funny because that's like what I've always wanted in this life. That's just what's popped up into my head is like, oh yeah, if I have kids, I want like 2 boys and then a girl. And that's, I guess, the way it was in that life. So it makes sense that I would want to replicate that. But yeah, it's like this sense of, you know, it's not like there was a lot of love. I could sense a lot of love in that being that I was in that life. And that even though I was a man technically in that life and I was fulfilling this masculine role, there was a lot of feminine energy there that it didn't feel weird for me to like step into his boots, his little farmer boots for a minute it didn't feel foreign. It didn't feel like, oh wow, this is how it feels to be a man. Like it felt the same. It's just that I was fulfilling this more masculine role and then had the identity of being male, which a lot of like gender an identity for a lot of us. But the actual masculine feminine energies are, it's like a whole different conversation.
Yeah. We're like having it in a new way.
Yeah.
Where there's not near as many boundaries inside that conversation, where like it's all allowed to blend together in a way that I think is like way closer to what's actually going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So much more complex than just like I'm a man or I'm a woman. It's so much more than that. Even if you do identify with one category or the other, doesn't mean you're all masculine energy or all feminine energy. It's just not like that at all. It's
I mean, I think it's amazing. And I wonder, well, and I guess it doesn't have to do with this, because like in human design, I have an open identity center and you have a defined identity center. Right. So like, it's very interesting to me, like how identity works and like what shapes our identity, and that we have like a business identity, and we have a sexual identity, and we have a family identity, and we have a friendship identity. Like even within your friendships, maybe you have different identity. Like it's crazy. Maybe this is all my Gemini energy coming to the surface and revealing itself. But I mean, I think for all of us, it's working on some level. Identity is very, very intertwined. But yeah, maybe that's a fun conversation for another day.